How many of you have been in a locker room? Raise your hand, show of hands. How many of you have been in a professional locker room? Show of hands. How many of you have dropped a microphone in front of 70 naked men in a locker room? I knew I had you there. So this is what happens. I'm in the locker room. I've been rejected 500 times. Can you imagine? But this is my dream. I want to be in this stinky professional locker room. Why? Because I want to know what makes these athletes tick. I want to know what makes an owner do the things that he does to drive a team, to build a bigger house. Obviously, money, but there's pride and so much more involved in that. I wanted to know all the minutiae surrounding sports. So 500 rejections for that moment where I dropped the microphone in the locker room, the Dallas Cowboys locker room, when it wasn't popular to drop a microphone. Now it's a verb, but it wasn't then. So I drop the mic, boom, just boom, it goes down on the ground. And I hear off in the distance, don't bend down, don't bend down. For God's sake, don't bend down. And I realize that I'm in front of these men who are in various states of undress, because I'm not thinking about that. I'm kind of nervous. So they have sort of towels on. I think they have pants on. I'm not sure, because I'm just looking up. I'm just trying to look up. So he was right about that. And slowly walks over to me like this. And I hear the boots clicking, and I realize, oh, he has a towel on. Bends down, picks it up, hands me the mic, and that player was a superstar player named Jay Novacek, who was a tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. And here's the thing, when you're dealing your own destiny, which is what I want to talk to you about today, I'm not alone in this. So I might have been the only woman in that locker room, but I guarantee all of you have some locker room, some place, some destiny you'd love to get to. But what is it that's holding you back? I just read something in a Gallup poll that 98%, and this isn't a fake statistic, I really checked it out, but it seems fake to me. 98% of the people who responded to this Gallup poll about fulfilling their dreams and dealing their own destiny never got there, aren't getting there, aren't doing it. So what's stopping them? Fear. Fear was a big factor in it, afraid to take the risk. I say you go all in. That's what I did. That's what got me to the locker room. And it wasn't just me. It was the people around me who assumed some of the risk. So as you can imagine, well-meaning people, parents, friends, etc., would say to me when I would tell them I want to be the first woman to have my own talk radio show and be a television sports anchor. There were other women who were doing sidelines and other things like that, but I really wanted to be the person that cracked that wide open. They would tell me, well-meaning about it, why don't you go to law school? Your family has such a credit line in law in Philadelphia. Why don't you go to law school? Why don't you become an investment banker? Why don't you do something else? This is so hard, because I kept getting those rejections after rejection after rejection. And what I learned was that people can be very persuasive who are really your advocates. So I took the law entrance exam. I aced it. Everybody's excited around me because they assume, oh, she's going to get into the University of Pennsylvania, or she's going to go to one of these big schools. And boy, was I really headed in that direction. Even though I knew I wanted to do the sports thing, I was getting more and more down in the dumps, feeling like, wow, what am I doing? I've lost one marriage. I'm up to debt up to my eyeballs because of this. This is crazy. And then this funny thing happened, and I learned about the power of patience. So it was about maybe I'd had 350 rejections. And at the time, people, sometimes they would email, sometimes they would send just a generic letter rejecting, saying, we thank you for applying, but we aren't interested in you, or whatever it would be. And this one day I walked to the mailbox, and And actually, at the time, I thought it was going to be the results of my law test, what I had done. And I go to the mailbox and I get this letter. And I'm going to give you just a little excerpt from it. And here's what the letter said. The letter said, "Dear Kate, you are very, very good. You look great on camera. Your voice is great. But I have a feeling you would really fail doing sports. Women do not belong in a locker room." That was all I needed, right? You know when that one person sucker punches you? So I decided at that moment, I was going to play the long game. I was going to have the patience to follow this thing through. And it made me more dogged, more determined, and I realized what it took to deal my own destiny was also reaching out. I was operating in a silo. I was sending out tapes, but I wasn't reaching out to anybody to try to get them to help me. What could I do better? How could I get in here? What should I do? So I started to reach out more, and I would challenge all of you in going down this road of dealing your own destiny, which there's no better feeling than that. Don't be that 98%. Reach out, leverage friends that are the well-meaning friends that aren't trying to tell you to do something else. Learn something new. Tweak whatever your material is. I don't care if you're in banking. I don't care if you're in law. I don't care if you're a dentist. Whatever it is you do for a living, what else is it that drives you? And maybe it is in your current position, but there's something else you're reaching for, but for some reason you're holding back. It's part of that whole fear thing. Patience pays for guys like Tom Brady. I've interviewed Tom Brady 10 times in my life. I call him Tommy. He lets me. I think Giselle does too, but I think she's okay with it. So the first time I interviewed him, our careers were kind of going in the same direction. He was just a few years younger than me. And he started to tell me these stories because I had conversations with him about how did you get here and all that other sort of stuff. Well, of course, he was drafted in the 6th round, 199th. A lot of people thought he had a good arm, thought he was a good quarterback, but just didn't have the right stuff to be a superstar quarterback. That's why he dropped so low. And I said, "What kept you going?" And he said, "Oh, I knew when I was at Michigan, I knew when I was in high school that I was going to make it and I was going to win," you know what he told me? 5 Super Bowls. I have that on tape somewhere. He's won 5 Super Bowls. And at the time, he was a backup to a guy named Drew Bledsoe. And then he got his opportunity, and the rest is, of course, history. And he told me patience is what really drove him. And knowing that he did have the right stuff and that he was going to go all in, just like I had done. The third thing in dealing your own destiny is stacking the deck, right? So in stacking the deck, it goes back to a little bit of what I've thrown out here, meaning the people that you're around, you got to throw some of them out because they're not part of that deck that's a winning hand for you. If they're not encouraging you, if they're not helping you with what you have to go through, the tenacity, playing the long game, then they don't need to be part of your deck. It's a hard thing to do. It's something that Sarah Blakely told me. I think all the women, how many women know who Sarah Blakely is in the audience? Thank you, Sarah. Spandex Queen, Forbes 100, top 100, and her connection to sports, by the way, her and her husband and a few others bought the Atlanta Hawks. They're part of a conglomerate. And you know, Sarah now is a billionaire, but she started out with $15,000 that she had left in savings to try to make those Spanx, and she made it happen. And again, that goes to 2 of the things I said. And the third thing, she told me in an interview with Sarah, she told me that she really made sure she stacked the deck the best she could. She got the best advisors around her. She reached out to everybody she could to really, really come up with that product and nail it. And she did. And she called in a lot of favors. Sometimes when you stack the deck, you have to call in a lot of favors. My name's Kate Delaney, and I've invaded 780 locker rooms. They wouldn't let me in one. I challenge you to deal your own destiny.